Welcome back to part 11 of the Intro to Substance Monster Painting series. In the previous part, we refined the lava on this eggshell for this little creature guy. So what we're going to be doing now is adding some height map details. So we're going to be painting on the height map. So we're going to go to the shell mask. We're going to create a new fill layer inside of the shell mask, which is the folder that is masked out. And what we want to do is turn off everything for now, and we will turn height on. We'll set it to minus 0.2, and then we will go to the color. It'll make this darker, and then we'll add a black mask. Okay, so now that we have the black mask, I want to pull up the shelf. So window, views, shelf, if you closed it. We're gonna get the artistic heavy brush. I don't know why this artistic heavy sponge kind of like bugs out. I don't know why it does that. It's just like, like I can use it, it just bugs out. We're gonna make sure flow and size pressure sensitivity's on, and then turn the flow down to like 13. And then what we can do is select the mask, and we'll call this surface shadows, or maybe surface height. So we are painting a little bit of color, but we're also adding height, so we can add little details to the shell, so it has some different sections to it. So we can have smooth sections and parts that are more like worn away. And we're using a nice textured brush to get a larger surface area to add a little bit of noise, essentially. So you don't want to press down too hard. You can use the brackets, the square brackets, to increase and decrease brush size. You want to be careful to avoid painting in the lava, because it will affect the lava. So we're just adding in a little bit of detail, nothing too crazy, just to the shell. Originally I wanted to add cracks, and I think we still will add cracks. But for now I want to add this detail. Cracks can be tricky because if you don't do them correctly, they can look really weird. So I'm gonna hold off on doing that until after we get all this, like, all these broad details in, the like larger details. So we'll start with the top. Another thing we can do is actually kind of blend the lava sections in to the shell a little bit, so it doesn't kind of just like randomly fall off. It kind of like pushes in and seems to be part of the shell, like this. So towards the tip of those. This can actually be a precursor to the cracks, because some of these parts would be cracked very likely. So like parts like this, kind of push in some of these forms and integrate them better into the overall shape. We can even push in parts here, like near the edge, so the lava stands out. I'm being careful to not actually paint on the lava, but to the side of it, because the lava actually physically sticks up. So if we paint in these little crevices on the sides, because there is geometry there, it'll actually push it up a little bit. And this kind of gives us the appearance of cracks as well, which is what I wanted to add anyways, so it kind of works out. So I'm just painting along parts where there's breaks. We could also paint in here too, to make it even a little bit more dramatic between the shell. Let's see, that might be too strong. Yeah, I think that's a little bit too strong, maybe. Actually, I don't know. That kind of looks okay. It looks like a plane change, which is nice. So it looks like this is turning into like a different part of the shell to some degree. I can blend it later, but let's experiment with that. Let's see how that looks. I can blend it like that. Oh yeah, I like that. I think that looks a little bit better. Might be too dark though. Yeah, let's undo all that. The shell stuff. Let's leave that alone for now. Because it's a little bit too extreme. So Alt and click rotates. So that's how I'm doing that while sculpting, or I keep saying I'm sculpting. It feels like I'm sculpting because like when you paint with height map, it looks like you're sculpting, but you're actually just painting on a thing, on a UV. So it's a little tricky. I'll probably say it a few more times throughout these videos. I'll call it sculpting. Alright, what I want to do is just get the rest of the shell. Let's just check this. Alright, so I didn't get this side at all. So I'm going to put some details there, put a little bit there, put some here, maybe not as much. Maybe some here. And then get these little parts here. Then parts like this. Some of this in there. Okay. So it's a little subtle layer. But it's nice for blending parts of this, for these like little transitions. Might be hard to tell what's going on down here. You can adjust your light. So right now we're using panorama. You can change the environment. So like let's say we want this light. This is a little bit brighter, so you can see it. Now, each one of these things will change the lighting situation you're dealing with. So try to use the same environment, because now this looks washed out, but it probably isn't. It's just the way that this looks, like the way that this environment looks. Panorama is a pretty good environment to use, I find. But if you want to make it brighter, that's how you do it. And you can also increase environment exposure, which in effect makes it brighter. And you can also turn on the environment on, so you can see. But that can be distracting, so it's usually best to have it off. I do want to hit the bottom with a lot of this because it'll be kind of worn down more. This also is kind of adding like a nice like rock texture where we're adding the details. So I just want to hit the bottom up pretty well. This also kind of doubles as like looking like shade, like shadow. You rotate the light with shift and right click and drag. I try to call these out just because the more you hear it, especially if you're learning about Substance, the more likely... I'm basically trying to be repetitive on purpose to have the, you know, information stick. So I am going to go over this just with like a single brush stroke. Just like hit up these edges a little bit. This will create shadow to some degree, like the appearance of shadow, and also help. I'm going to also darken the inside as well. We'll do that in this video because I believe we said we have some time, because we're pretty much done with this stage. Then what I want to do is darken up the inside. Just got to get the top, then the bottom, and then we'll do the inside guy. Alright, we'll do the bottom. I don't want to do it as much, just a little bit. Just add some shadows, some roughness, some height. I'll try to avoid the corners because we painted those in earlier to make them kind of stick out. This can also help the corners appear sharper if you avoid them and paint everything else in that's like near it. Okay, so we have that done. So here is the effect. It's definitely subtle, but I think it adds a lot. And then to wrap up this video, we'll go ahead and paint a transition between the shell and the goop, the goopy guy. So we'll go to inverted mask. Under highlights, we'll just click new fill, and it'll just put it on top of it, like above it. We'll turn off everything again, and we'll turn on height. We'll do -0.2, then color, probably a kind of dark red, like a very dark red, something like that. And then we'll call this goo shell shadows, so we know exactly what it is. And then we will right click, add a black mask. Alright, so let's see what kind of result we get using the same brush. So pretty good, actually, I think. We don't want it to be too extreme. I kind of want to add more color into the shadow. Maybe like... Still want it to be dark, but I want to have some color to it. Shadows usually aren't like solid black or like, you know, dark. I mean, they're dark, but they usually have some color to them. And I don't want to do like a ton here. I just want to kind of create a little bit of a transition between these two shapes here. We can start to add in some details that kind of like unify the shadows, or like tie them into the form a little bit better. So this kind of doubles as, so like here's like the effect of it. You can see what it's doing. Let's make it a little bit brighter. Okay, I like that more. I added some more color and made it a little bit brighter. I'm making little lines where there's already existing lines to add these little like wrinkles. And we can even go ahead and add, like, emphasize them a little bit more independent of this, like just on the model itself. I am going to do a more simplistic tutorial for the next one. This one's definitely getting there in terms of what we're doing, but I think it's good to do this. Because it should teach the basic process of, like, you know, creating fills, masking, the different properties of the channels that we want to add, like, you know, make changes to. So for example, when we're painting in height and a little bit of color, like it's instilling the idea of, you know, using those properties for specific reasons, as well as like showing what they do. Because like the height, you know, we've been using it this entire time, so you don't need to go watch a video on what height is. But I probably will make a video on what height is and show it in, like, in Unreal Engine and stuff, because that could be fun. But I like to learn by doing. That's how I learn. So the more I do something, I mean, that's true for anyone. Like, the more you do something, the better you get. But I learn by actually practicing. I'm not like someone who can, like, read about something and learn it. I have to actually do it. I have to do it a lot, and then I'll get it. We can paint in some of these darker sections too. So we're almost done with this. Actually, I don't want to touch parts of it. I think what we'll do after this is do like a thing for emphasis where I'll paint positive height, because right now we're painting negative height. I'll paint positive height so that it looks like parts of the goo guy are like bulging out of the shell. I think that would look good. Alright, we've almost done our whole loop here. I'm not hitting every area. Parts that look like they're already bulging out, I kind of want to have those stay, but parts that are shadowed, or shaded rather, I kind of want to push those in more for some emphasis and variety. Alright. I don't know, I didn't get this side yet fully. Okay, so that's the top. So this is like the zoom out. I like to check to see like what actually was added, just to kind of see if it was, you know, a good effect, if it looks correct, if there's any parts that look weird. All right, I think overall it looks a little bit better. And then what I want to do is the bottom. So just like the top. And then we can go ahead and continue with this layer and paint in more details on the goo guy, so like himself. So let's do this. Try to paint in details more so than shadows. Like, you're not just like mindlessly filling it in. I would say you want to try to create points of interest if there aren't any. Not always, but for stuff like this which goes in, I want to paint it in more. type of thing. Like I want this to look like a cavity if it's supposed to look like a cavity. So making it darker can help. Painting it in terms of its height can help. So like this is like underneath the tongue, for example. And like in the nose. Alright, let's get this guy going. So far, so good. Also, definitely like and subscribe if you've been following along, because I don't think many... I think at least like 10 or 20% of people that watch these videos are subscribed, which is actually pretty good. This channel is still small though, so that number will drastically change as I get more views, but definitely like and subscribe if you're following along. It greatly helps the channel out and me personally. So I'm just adding little details to parts that are already painted for, like, you know, emphasis. Breaking up some forms so it just doesn't look like a big blob of nothing. Which maybe that is what you're painting. Maybe you are painting an enemy that's like a blob. Because this guy's kind of blob-like. And that's fine. Like, not everything needs to be broken up. That's not like a general rule. But in this case, I kind of want to break up some of this. Alright, let's check it out. We have the top and the bottom done. It's hard to tell sometimes, these little incremental things, like what the effect is. So it is nice to like toggle it. But overall, like the overall result is what we're like aiming at, you know? We're not just pursuing like a quick little thing. This is a process. Alright, so I think that adds quite a bit. And then what we can do to wrap up is just kind of touch up some areas. Now, I wouldn't hit every area with dark shadows. I would just hit certain spots, like especially spots that already look like they're well shaded. Because if you just start putting it everywhere, it'll look insane. So it's all about moderation and balance, I would say. Very much like real life. It's very philosophical. So we just want to add it to some sections. Not everything should be super dark or super bright. Most of it should be somewhere in between. And then small parts of it should be that. Unless you're making... There's always exceptions to everything. But I would say that's generally good advice. Like, most things should be like mid-tones, right? Unless there's a specific reason they're not. Because, like, I remember when I first started digitally painting, I would always make everything too dark and too bright, and I, like, overused highlights, and everything just looked insane. So I learned from my mistakes. So I'm making the mouth darker because I do want this to, like, be visually pushed down. I might... Hold on, let me see. Maybe that's too much. Maybe that's fine, like that. Parts of this. The roof of the mouth. We can hit underneath the lips. Just the bottom part of it. Especially, like, here. and a little bit on the sides and the corners. Paint in the eyes a little bit. I want to get like that somewhat. Some of these ridges. Okay. All right, let's check it out. All right, I think that adds quite a bit. Because each layer adds something incremental, right? Like that adds something, even though it's subtle, but definitely in the bottom you can tell, and like on some of these transitions. Oh, I missed transition here. Let's get that. And this one as well. Yeah, you can see what that adds too. It also helps emphasize the lava veins to some degree and gives them a place to end up in, because before they were kind of just ending on the egg. Now it looks like they're physically ending in like a slot, like they're blending into the shell rather than just kind of like ending on the shell. All right, so that's where we're at now. We're going to be getting into some like micro surface stuff in the next one, but I think we're starting to get there. I think the result is almost to where I want it. So yeah, that's it for this one. Definitely like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.